So welcome everyone. It's so exciting to have you here. Here in New York, it is rainy and cold and gross and dark because we just had the time change. But we're going to pretend that, oh my gosh, I love that background. We're going to pretend we're on the beach with Anna and enjoy that view. My name is Karen Weeks. It is so wonderful to have you all here. This is the second time we've done this virtual workshop. We're learning and growing as we try these out, but really the goal is to have a group of experts here to help you with your career change. So I've got some leading questions to kind of get us started and warm us all up, but then honestly, we are going to open it up to people, and you can either put questions in the chat if you're not in a place where you can speak openly, or you can unmute yourself and just jump on in. We'll do some live coaching for where you are in your career journey. So again, my name is Karen Weeks. I am both the SVP of People at a company called Orderboard, but I also do career coaching and help people navigate their careers. I host a podcast about people who made career changes, because I think sometimes people feel alone, and you are not. Many people make career changes, so hearing other people's stories and their advice can sometimes be really helpful. So that's the point of getting off the hamster wheel, which is my podcast. So I'm going to start with Sally and ask Sally and Beatrice to introduce themselves, because they will do it way better than I will. So Sally, let's start with you.
Nice to meet those of you who I haven't met before. My name is Sally, as Karen said, and my background has been predominantly within talent acquisition. I began within recruitment agencies, so I was partnered with about 150 different tech startups, helping them to recruit for talent across every department, pretty much. I eventually transitioned into one of those companies and helped them to scale. So there I worked very, very closely with hiring managers to hire every single role that we hired for in the UK or in the US. And now I have started my own company, which is for employer branding in particular. And that's going to be relevant even today, because so much of the way that a company brands themselves is similar to the way that you want to be branding yourself within an interview, in the way that you present yourself and how you speak about what's relevant about your experience. And so anything that we'll be chatting about, I will approach through that lens of being a recruiter, working with people directly, working directly with hiring managers to help them make those hires, and then helping companies to brand themselves as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Sally, and sharing your expertise. Beatrice, if you would love to introduce yourself.
Well, hi, everybody. First of all, Karen, thank you for having me here. For all of you that I'm meeting today, my name is Beatrice, and I am a former head of HR and recruiting at a fast-growing startup organization based in New York. I transitioned into coaching and specialize in career success and leadership coaching. I especially like to help and work with high-achieving mid-level professionals break through leadership positions with confidence. And particularly, I like to work with professionals from underrepresented backgrounds. So I help people really achieve those positions either within our organization or outside of the organization, and define success for them. So yeah, that's a little bit of background. Other than that, I am an Energy Leadership Index practitioner and a firm believer in mindset. And everything starts with that. And that's the way I approach my coaching practice.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So as people start to get to know us and settled and get comfortable, I am going to start with two leading questions, and then we will dive in. So Beatrice, if someone is feeling stuck in their current job or their career, how can they start to identify what they may actually want to do instead? Like, what's that first thing that they should do?
Well, Karen, I think the first thing that anybody that is in this position is decide to decide. Let me explain that for a second. So a lot of the times it is that hesitation that brings all the yeah buts, what ifs. All of that noise is not going to let the person really be clear about where they want to do or where they want to go. So that would be my first advice. Again, is just really decide to decide, make that choice, and you'll see that everything else starts falling through. Now, on a more tactical, let's say, approach, one thing is just to start paying attention to the clues. Really, the clues are in front of us. Start looking at what are my gifts? What is it that I'm really good at, or that people really notice that I'm good at? And then start finding those little clues that are right in front of us. And I think that is something that anybody can do today.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is amazing how much that mind shift changes your whole perspective. And all of a sudden, if you think about someone who is going to make a career change, or you think about, I am going to be a product manager, I am going to be whatever, that all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it's actually possible. And new things open up and you see things everywhere you look, because it's like your whole mind shift has changed. Sally,
right.
Any additional thoughts on what's the first thing they should do once they realize they're stuck?
I think that Beatrice spoke to a lot of it. I mean, I've been in this situation before too, right? And I think I really found a lot of value in writing it out, like physically writing it out on paper. And it was sort of a trick that I actually learned way back in school as well. But that for me was helpful in sort of saying, okay, what are all my possible options? And then once I had these things that resonated with me and that felt true to who I was trying to be or who I was, I created a page for each of those things and sort of created a timeline for what could that actually lead to. What would be the reality of getting that? How difficult would that be? What would be the outcome a year from now? What would be the outcome potentially 2 years from now, right? But I do think it starts with exactly what Beatrice said, and really self-evaluation, right? Before you can start to even take that potential path of what could this possibly look like.
It's so funny. I've neglected to say that we are all career changers ourselves,
Yes.
whether that's through our own journeys or, I actually started as a stage manager in theater way back in the day. So not only is this what we sort of focus on in our lives, but we ourselves have gone through what all of you are thinking about going through. So one more leading question before we open it up to the group. So Sally, as soon as someone starts to think about this new job, one thing that sometimes holds people back is, well, that's not who I am today. So how will I ever get the opportunity to even interview for another job? So how can they start to position themselves, whether that's through a resume or whatever suggestions you have, so that they can actually start being considered for whatever new thing they want to do?
Absolutely. I think we first, like before you even start to create these tangible things like resume, I've noticed, because I've also done some coaching as well. And what I've noticed is we tend to create these blinders for ourselves that put us in a box that is smaller than the people around us perceive us to be. So I think that it's really valuable to speak with sort of two groups of people when you're deciding, how do I portray myself the right way? One category are just like your closest friends who know you best, or your colleagues you've worked closest with, to say, this is the profession I am hoping to explore, but I'm worried I'm not enough of a fit for it. And your friends will actually point out in your personality and in your work ethic things about you that correspond to that job in a way that you might not have realized. They will often see the side of you in a way that you've been unable to see yourself. So like that's a first group that will say, you actually are these things in these specific ways, or I've always thought of you like that. And that will give you a newfound confidence. The other side is speaking with people who do the job you want to do. And you will also find in those conversations certain aspects of the reality of their roles that are far more like your role than you realized. Mm-hmm. And you'll say, wow, that is actually something I do every day. I just call it something different, or I'm working with a different type of decision maker, but we're pretty much having the same type of discussion. And this will confirm for you, I actually am more of this than I realized I was, right? So once you have those different pieces, then it comes down to incorporating that into your resume appropriately, right? What are some of the words that you heard them use that you use too? What are some of the things that they do with decision makers that you do too, where you can say cross-departmentally, instead of saying, I work specifically with engineers, now you want to work with marketers, whatever, you're working cross-departmentally with the leaders of departments and director positions. Make it a bit more vague to show you've done it, even if it's in a different way. The other thing that I'll point to, which has just been monumental for some of the people that I've hired throughout my career, cover letters and direct emails go a really, really long way. So some people don't read cover letters. Some people think they're useless. I am a big believer in cover letters, and those and emails sent directly to me that have said, when you look at my resume, it's not going to be obvious why I want to do this job, but here's why. Like, here's how my prior experience is actually relevant. Here's what inspired me to explore this path. Those messages are what have gotten me on calls with people I would have never considered before, because I say, okay, they're not just, what people think is they think that you are just spraying your resume. Mm-hmm. What people often assume, if you don't look exactly right, it's not that they just don't think you can do it. They often are like, you're obviously just sending your resume to any freaking job and you just want a job. So that additional step of saying, no, I thought about your company and your role in particular, and here's how it resonates with me, can be enough for someone to say, okay, they put in some extra effort. This is obviously an intentional thing. Let me speak to them and see what they have to say. One last thing I'll say on that, if you can do that with one of the people who influence the hiring decision, that person can then be your champion. In those instances, when we've hired those people with unique backgrounds, a lot of it is because I went to my hiring manager before every interview and said, you're going to look at their profile, you're going to say it makes no sense. Here's how it does. You go to the next person and the hiring manager who spoke with them who agree, and you say, you're going to look at their profile. It makes no sense. I promise it does. Like, just have a conversation with them. And that is sometimes what it takes to really get you considered. And it all starts with that cover letter or that note.
Nice. Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel the same way when people do blind reach outs on LinkedIn to say, hey, are you willing to chat, or I wanted to connect. The person that took the time to say, this is why I want to talk to you, Karen Weeks, goes a lot further than I copy and pasted it this 20 times and your name just happened to be one of them. And so I think that personalization and that storytelling goes such a long way, no matter how you're trying to connect with someone. Beatrice, any additional thoughts on your side about how to position?
Absolutely. I mean, storytelling is one of the key aspects that I encourage my clients to work on. Why? We all have our stories, our authentic selves, and we want to bring ourselves. We just need to communicate it. So we just need to just make sure that we know what we're trying to communicate, and we do it in the interview process. As Sally was pointing out, I'm just here nodding because it is very true. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the perfect conventional resume, but it's the story what wins you the extra mile, what gets you there. And really show that. And a lot of the times it's really how you show up, and how you show up not only in the interview, but at every step of the process.
Nice. Excellent. Well, we started off with some great advice, things that I know people tend to have top of mind, but this is actually about you. So I know it's always scary to be the first, but is anyone willing or interested in sort of raising their hand and asking our panel for some advice for what you're going through directly in your life?
Let's see.
Yes. Jump on in.
Hi, everyone. I was writing this, and I don't know. I guess I'll just read it out loud because I'm trying to navigate my 3-year-old over here.
No worries.
I love that you all are career changers, because that's just, I forgot to add that in there, but I said it's less about deciding to decide. For me, I've been a quote unquote, I would say inactive entrepreneur for about 5 years, because this miracle 3-year-old that's now in my life is a blessing and a curse. She came at a time when, after 18 years of working in the corporate sector, making great money, great benefits, life was good, having 3 miscarriages and realizing I probably need to get away from where 9/11 happened, because it's both physically stressful and mentally stressful. I was growing out of my job. I was hating the work I was doing. This is someone who went into human resources because she liked humans at 17 years old.
Oh, yes.
And then ended up on a path of, I was in HR, but I was doing, because I was good at math, they put me on payroll and then compensation. And then, well, we can trust you with compensation, so you can manage a global HR database. It went into technology. And the higher up I got, I was dealing with tech and less with humans. And that was annoying. And then you know how terrible it is when the only humans you interact with is board members and senior management. You might as well just be like a robot. So left 18 years of that to finally have the dream baby I want. I have a nurse husband who, I stayed home with her for 2 years. and then I went to Columbia, got my master's in nonprofit management / it was actually fundraising management when I signed on,
Okay.
thinking, okay, I could use all my talent and, with all the money people I know, raise money for causes in my Black female community. But then needing to take the ghetto job close to home that paid like nothing because I want to be close to my daughter. Like it's my life is just crazy. Too many considerations. But I know that I'd make a fabulous employee for someone who is the right fit.
Right.
And then when I find, those 5 jobs in 5 weeks, and I take the 5 hours writing that cover letter, reaching out to them personally on LinkedIn, trying to build, like doing all of this for it to end nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I can't, I don't know. Maybe this is a sign that I should just focus on my entrepreneurial endeavor instead, because I have too many things I need to align, the stars to align. Okay, let me stop talking before Emily, Ann, and Susanna, like, she's trying to get her free session in during this webinar, which is kind of true.
Well,
we
And by
invited
the
you
way,
to the floor for a reason.
Wait, I don't have my green screen up, but like my island, my Jamaican beach there, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
It's like the one tree is blowing in the breeze. We're feeling enough of it. Don't worry.
I need to put the green screen, but okay, I'm listening now. I'm listening. Active listening is one of the great skills I have.
Good. Dana, well, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that with us. And from one 3-year-old mother to another 3-year-old mother, I hear you. Believe me, I have mine over there in the room playing with the nanny. And trust me, I think it is really tough to balance everything. And kudos to you for doing everything that you're doing. And I will tell you this. First of all, I want you to take a step back here with me and really close your eyes for a second. You with me? Okay. So close your eye for a second.
I probably shouldn't though, because I need to keep an eye on her, and she might be eating Play-Doh if I close my eyes. I'm mentally closing.
Okay. So
I'm on the beach. I'm on the beach.
So you're on the beach. You're on the beach, and I hear her. So let's do something different. What I will tell you is the following. I think what I hear from you a lot is that conflict between different roles. You want to be a mom. You also want to be your professional self, and you have this entrepreneurial dream out there. So what is stopping you? What do you think is the one thing that is stopping you here?
It's not honestly, it's the financial, it's the ability to, here's the thing. I think I could find a childcare provider that my husband would agree with, because he's in ICU. He's about to be a nurse practitioner, actually. He already did that.
Wow.
He's seen COVID affect Black women, mothers, young. They DIED'd with children. Like, he's like, I'm not sending my daughter to a school where she could bring this home to you. You're not going to, I have asthma, I have autoimmune condition, I'm overweight, I have all the pre-existing conditions. So he's like, yeah, I think you just need to not, just focus on taking care of her, because she's our one and only. We went through so much to have her. It means you have no income. I mean, $400 a week from unemployment, that's ridiculous. But we're trying to still have this lifestyle that we're used to, being 2 professionals. We have tenants, we have things, it's a lot. So for me, the thing that's holding me back from launching is the money that would be involved in pursuing that route, because it would mean that I have to put her in school somewhere or get private childcare, or I don't know.
Well, so and that's absolutely what I hear you saying here is, again, there are many priorities, competing priorities, and obviously many circumstances surrounding that. So let me ask you this: what can you control? What is the one thing that you can control?
I can control. I think, you know what? I can control the number of hours that I would be able to focus on my professional life is just not at the time. It's not during the day. That's the issue.
Okay.
It's that I can do great work. I have boundless energy once she's sleeping, and my left brain turns back on. Is that the business side, left or right, the arts brain? I don't know. The other side turns back on, and I'm fully engaged. Like, oh my God, all this talent is going to waste, and I'm afraid if I keep doing this for years, it's going to disappear. But it's not during traditional business hours. But during COVID, this is great because who needs you to? They don't care what time you do it. It just get it done. So I've got to find that employer with that role where I could do that.
Or you can focus on building your vision for that dream.
Well, but here's the challenge. The dream is, my company is called Do Right Enterprises, and the mission is to find corporate sponsorship for those nonprofit or social impact initiatives that I care most about, which is a plethora of things. But I think based on my career path of being in human resources, being a Black woman in a STEM career path, and there's so much money for, STEM education, diversifying STEM education. I think I found that sweet spot of, I want to raise money for diversifying STEM education, particularly for girls. I mean, it would check off every box. Now, I found some great employers that would work for me, which is Girl Scouts or, stuff. You're only 3, can't join yet. But it's a Black woman who is the president of Girl Scouts, maybe worldwide or US or New York, I don't know. I met her, I went to some of their corporate events. My former boss, who is now the chief diversity person for, not Facebook, but Priscilla Chan's.
I know who you're talking about.
I have the right connections, but I'm like scared. I found a role, but I'm like, I'm not really ready to apply because, my head, So that's where I am, Beatrice. Can you be like the Yanla and fix my life? You guys familiar with the Yanla fix my life? I need a team of you to do that.
No, absolutely. Look, what I hear, I hear again, somebody that has many priorities, many competing priorities. And you know what I just hear? I hear some fear. And I just want to get at the bottom of that fear. But I think that requires for us to have a mineral rights conversation. A minerals rights conversation for those who are in the call is a deep conversation. So, but I will tell you the following: just take a step back. When you have time, close your eyes and really try to vision that. Try to really, really think about what that vision is. How would it feel? Who else is around you? When you arrive there, what does it look like? I want you to really almost like a 3D picture of this and see what comes up to you. And you're going to find your answer there. But you need to do that. It's going to require for you to actually just get to that moment. So whenever you have some off time, I'll suggest you do that and see what comes back.
Another thing, and Sally, I want to give you a chance to chime in as well. Sometimes it's also, especially when you're going back and forth between, am I going to do something on my own, or am I going to, take the, I don't want to say safer path, but like go work for someone else. Sometimes figuring out what your timeline is can be helpful too, because that then gives you permission to take the time to figure it out. So if you say, financially, I have 3 months where I can work function the way we are functioning today. I have 90 days. That gives you permission to say, okay, I'm not going to think about full-time employment unless like the perfect thing comes along for 90 days. And that gives you that permission to use that time to think about, if you do want to go the full employment route, who do you want to work for? Maybe do a little bit of networking and introduce yourself to some of these folks, or take the time to work on some of the things that you want to do for yourself. And at night, write up marketing emails to send to these people that you know. You can send an email at 2 a.m. They don't care. And then, figure out phone calls, later. That's step 2. Make the connection with these folks first. Do research, put together proposals, all of the things that you can do on your own 2 in the morning, if that's what time it is, you have 90 days to work on all that with the permission to know that I'm okay during this time, and I'll cross the second bridge when I get to it at day 91. So sometimes just giving yourself that permission is helpful too. Sally, what are some of your thoughts?
Oh, wait, Sally,
Oh,
before
yeah.
I remember
Yeah,
I
of course.
remember why I told you about what I want to do with my business. It's because the best way to be successful at raising corporate sponsorships is to do it for real. Yeah, I have years of experience doing this as volunteer through my old employer, through other, involvements, but I want to be able to have on my resume, I actually did corporate sponsorship at this organization, and this is how. And because I didn't take a class in this at Columbia, so it would be I need to get this on my resume. So that's why I know it's not time to launch my business. It's time to get a job doing that kind of work, which would be the foundation for my business.
Got it. Well, then I think through that 90 days or, whatever that time frame is, that's giving you that time to find those organizations that really have that work, whose missions align with what you're looking for, to send those LinkedIn messages, to work on that obnoxious personalized cover letter. I love that personalized is in all caps in your note. But that's when you can work on, that, and that's what you're working on the next 90 days is really finding that right step. If that's the thing you need, if that's step one and your own company is step two, you want to make sure you're finding the right step one. And so that time frame that you give yourself can be finding the right step one.
Yeah,
and
I agree
sort of
with,
contributing,
yeah.
Contributing on that same end of like what that step one is. I think something that has been a really big learning experience for me during COVID in particular was like, because I've been doing consulting, was recognizing that to earn these consulting gigs doesn't necessarily have to be you've done this exact same thing before. It can be bits and pieces of what you've done that contribute to an end goal. So it's possible, particularly given COVID, you're looking after your 3-year-old, like there's so many factors here. You have such a unique and valuable background on so many different levels, and that you're in HR, we're in STEM, you're a Black female, like you are in so many ways the expert to come into organizations today, even as a consultant, and just say, oh, you want to actually create a strong diversity and inclusion program for STEM? Okay, well, as a woman who has run HR and been within the STEM world, here are recommendations for how you begin to build that. Here are recommendations for how you get in front of the right audience. And so maybe step one isn't the fundraising. Step one is the consulting around how do they begin to build this into their org structure. And then as you give them expertise there, they trust you and you say, another part of this is going to be the fundraising. Here's how I recommend you do that. But there can be this in-between step of you as a human being and professional bring expertise. Most of these companies have no one to turn to for. You can start there, show them how great you are, how much you bring to the table, and then start to feed in these other things that you want to do more of that you've had limited experience in. People are killing for someone with your experience. They honestly are. They just but it might just be from a consultant capacity. They might not know what that role looks like yet. So you could come in and teach them to this in a way that's not an official title that gives you the expertise to build what you want to do next.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. Definitely connect with any of us afterwards, and we can keep chatting as well. And emails will go out with contact information and all that stuff after this. So thank you for, like I said, just being vulnerable and sharing your story, period, but also being the first. So thank you. Let's see, is there someone else who would like to raise their hand to ask for some advice about where they are in their journey? Or if you're not in a place where you can talk, you can also throw something in the chat as well.
So sorry, I'm actually recording this for my brother. He's currently training for a job right now. It's just a in-between job, but he has a career path he wants to go down in recruiting. And he texted me and was like, can you please record this for me? So sorry. But that being said,
Is your brother Paul?
My brother is Paul.
I know Paul.
Yeah. But it's funny. So I actually used to be a recruiter, and I do a little bit of it now with my current position, but that's just sort of help out. And everything you guys are saying is like totally accurate and true. And Dana, you're going to get a great job. You just are, because you have a great personality, and people like good people. They want to work around good. You just will.
I need Paul to recruit me into wherever he ends up.
Paul needs to be a recruiter first, but
Susanna, find me on LinkedIn, because all 18 years of working in HR, I know thousands of recruiters who probably would just like take him under their wing or something. Assuming he's a good guy. His sister sounds pretty good, so it might be in the team.
He's a really, really, really good guy. He just needs I think a little bit of confidence and kind of the right people to kind of connect with. So
we all do. The good ones don't want to step out there and mess it up and mess up their reputation. That's why he has you doing all this. He's trying to prepare. Preparation is the number one thing, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, and I think not being afraid of failing and being okay with it not being perfect, and we're all human. And I'm not perfect either. So anyway, I'm recording this for my brother, and I text him. I was like, what these ladies are saying is great. So I'm going to pass it on. So I'll just keep recording, and I'll be sharing it with my brother this evening.
So
thanks for doing that for him. You're such a great sister.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome.
So just out of curiosity, and I know he can't speak for himself, what career is he coming from in order to get into recruiting?
So he has kind of his background's been a little all over the place. He's done stuff in like hospitality. He did stuff with like psychology, and wanted to kind of get into being a therapist, and then switched to being in real estate and got his license, but didn't really kind of go forward with that. So I think he's just like kind of been like trying to pick a path and go down it. And it hasn't really like sunken his teeth in too much with any one thing. And then we were just kind of chatting, and between kind of like with real estate, it involves a lot of sales. And I was just like, recruiting could be really good for you. And we kind of chatted about it. And I think he researched it. And I think it makes a lot of sense for his personality and the types of things he's good at. He's great with people. He's like intuitive. He's a hard worker. And I think like recruiting, you don't have to have like this insane background to get started in it. You can kind of start at an entry level and work your way up, and kind of there's more kind of opportunity to do that. So I think he felt kind of comfortable jumping into it. And I think he genuinely likes kind of helping people and being a part of that process. So I think it's a really good match. I think real estate can be very hard. It's, especially in California, it's extremely competitive and it's hard. And to even get started with it, and to join a real estate company, you don't really make any money the first year, which isn't like, for him, he's like, I can't just not make money for a year. So like, what other kind of options do I have? So I also think that like for him, recruiting could segue into a lot of other things down the line, like possibly even real estate, if that's what he decides to do, but kind of getting that experience and getting enough kind of sales skills, like I think would be helpful.
Yeah, it's really interesting listening to the jobs that you listed. There's so many skills that come from all of those that will be useful in recruiting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a really good match for him. I can't speak for him, even though I just kind of did, but yeah, we'll see. I'm excited.
I love it.
Well, it reminds me a little bit about my time at Smartling. I always look for I never hire somebody with a lot of experience. I like to give opportunities to people. But what I look at was just like, what are some of the key core skills that I can bring to the table? And literally the background that I always look for, are they in the hospitality? Are they in real estate? Or are they coming from self-development type of aspect, BDR? Kind of like the entry-level sales, because recruiting is all about building relationships and selling as well. So it is I think it's a good choice for him.
Yeah, I do too.
Sally, as someone who got into recruiting, any tips for how to sort of get into the field?
So Paul and I actually talked on the phone about his transition, and I texted him with this webinar. But I had said to him much of what we've said here, which is, Susanna, I agree with you. Sales is very, very applicable to recruitment, and that therapy side is too. I said to him, you'd be surprised how many recruiters don't listen to people who just like make a decision based on how they look on paper and like aren't taking into consideration what they're asking for and, you know, what their actual goals are and what inspires them. And I think that his therapy background would make him stronger than most recruiters because of that. What I did share with him was that it is, and I hope I didn't worry him too much, Susanna, but I was really honest with saying like, this is a really hard time to move into recruitment.
For sure.
Because so many people lost their jobs. So many people lost their jobs and their bosses lost their jobs. And I mean, Karen and I saw a lot of this. I mean, Beatrice, actually, you saw a lot of this. All of us were talking during this time of like all the people losing their job. And when I was writing posts about people, I had to create a limit for how many recruiters I featured every month because I could create a post with 5 recruiters every month because so many people lost their job. But I do think he has all of the skill sets to make him a good recruiter. He's just going to have to find that person who says, yeah, I agree. I've seen that work before. Or maybe even find like a company that has a therapy component to the offering that they have. I think that could be a really cool match, or a real estate one, right? Sort of looping in his expertise he has with what he wants to do next. That can always be a really valuable way. But what I told him was talk with other people who made a transition that looks like yours into recruitment. Speak with people who are the leaders of those departments where you have that similar tie, like therapy or real estate. So often it just takes someone liking you, right? Like Susanna said for Dana, right? Like it just takes someone saying, oh, this person has a lot of potential, or this person seems really smart or really kind. Like that can be your foot in the door, is someone vouching for you internally. So networking, man, networking's the way to do it.
Totally. Yeah.
Wait, I have something for Paul. My husband is a nurse. He's worked at major hospitals. So I think you said he in California. I would suggest Paul make a list. First, find the top 5. I was going to say healthcare recruitment organizations, because unfortunately, with the spread of COVID, that healthcare is where you want to be if you're going to be doing anything. I could not, I'm disgusted by anything health related. But anyway, Paul could find like the top 5. He should find like the top 5 hospitals, healthcare organizations, whatever, in the neighborhood, and find out who their recruiting partners are. And maybe he could recruit, junior level nurses or hospital staff or something like that, because there's probably job openings there. And with his therapy stuff background, he has something to lead in and make a great cover letter. And then just Google, in LinkedIn, put those keywords and try to find the people in your neighborhood or area that do that stuff, because you got to know somebody. HR is recruiting. It'll help you a lot if you know some people to help you get in.
Totally. Yeah. I think every job I've ever had was a personal introduction, or it was something or somebody, like there was always like a link, I never thought about it until this moment. But that being said, I've also hired a lot of people that just applied. Like, so, like it doesn't always have to be that way, but I do think it's certainly useful. You're right. I think he should definitely do that. And I didn't think about healthcare, but you're right. He could recruit for healthcare too. That's interesting. Or I like the idea about something within therapy or real estate. Those will be interesting. I'm so excited to show him this.
HR teams are investing in like mental health in a way like never before. COVID has started to partner, like during COVID, all these companies have started to partner with these software companies and these ways to like hook people up with therapists, like building off what Dana said. Yeah. Whether it's other sorts of healthcare, whether it's mental health, like they need recruiters recruiting those people and finding them, because they probably have more customers than they know what to do with.
Wow. Yeah. Such a good point.
Yeah. As an HR person who gets pinged by many wellness platforms every day, those companies are growing. And I think, that is one way. I know people are often hesitant to say, well, kind of going back to one of the questions we talked about earlier, how am I ever going to be considered as a recruiter? I've never recruited. But if you take either something that you're really driven about from like a purpose standpoint, or something from your background that you do know, and tie those together, you can say, I know what it's like to hire real estate agents because I've been one. And so let me, find a bunch of great ones for you. And it builds on your story. And it actually also might be something you're interested in because you were interested at some point. I definitely picture a world where someday I'm going to be HR in the arts, to go back to my original roots. Well, we have about just under 15 minutes left. I don't know if Emily, you want to raise your hand and speak up, or if you even can. Zero pressure. Want to give you the space to do it if you're interested. If not, I have a couple of final questions I can also throw out there too. All right. I'm going to throw out another question then, sort of a leading question for the group. If anyone wants to throw anything into the chat or raise their hand, please feel free. But again, zero pressure. This is in whatever way this is helpful for you. So one thing that we started to talk about a little bit is how to find those companies, whether it's companies that have roles for what you're looking for, or it's companies that tie into what's going to be important to you from a value standpoint. If someone wants to jump in, or I can assign this. But as you how do you start to think about the kinds of companies that you may want to work for, whether that's culture, management style, is similar values, whatever may be the thing that's important to you?
I can take, Sally, is that okay with you? Okay. So
I was going to say, this feels like a good Beatrice question.
Thank you. So one of the things that, I have had my clients do is just really, one, identify, get very clear with your conscious values. So values that you're actually choosing to live your life by, and also then with that in hand, just do some deep dive research. Sometimes you go to the company website, but it's not about the values that every company has a set of values that they have in the website. I think it's more about the behaviors of the company. So is the company behaviors, or what actions have they done recently that are talking about those values? And then make a list of that. And do some research. Again, if you feel comfortable, maybe use your network, ask people there, or hey, can I have an opinion? Send a LinkedIn invite with a little note. Hey, I'm interested. How's your experience working here? Maybe some people will respond, some people would not, but at least, do that and see what comes back. But I think it's very important to really get clear about what your conscious values are, what I'm looking for in a company from the behavior standpoint of the company.
Hey, I'm interested. A few weeks ago, Wells Fargo CEO said something crazy like, oh, it's so hard to find qualified minority talent. And he got vilified because it's like, this is the problem. You're not looking in the right place. Like, you're still so old school, you don't get it. And that pissed me off because my dad's house that I now own has a mortgage with Wells Fargo. So I sent a couple of notes on LinkedIn, like, I'm trying to get to him because I might have to move that mortgage to Chase, where they've evolved and they seem to have gotten it right. How do you feel about using like your personal life and connections with organizations to start being more like an activist? Like, I'm not going to spend my money with you if you you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And then maybe looking at those places to become your employer, because you have something valuable. You've been their customer. You probably filled out 1 or 2 surveys in the past, but you can like approach them and say, look, I have value because I can, to help you in this way, move the organization forward.
100%. 100%. And, again, it's the power of choice. The consciousness here is just what is, being intentional with that. And what you just said resonated a lot with me, because I guess 2 weeks ago, I had an interview with a company, and one of the questions that I asked was, tell me why in your leadership team they're all male, white Caucasian. And I get that answer about like we cannot find enough talent at that level. And look, I didn't say this, but in my mind, I was just like, that is just such a lame excuse. I'm sorry, but I was just like, I did question that. I said, how is that true? And literally, the person in the other side, he couldn't give me an answer, and that's when I knew that, definitely that's not a company that I am interested in going. One, two, I am super happy and thrilled with what I'm doing right now. If I'm going to go somewhere, it better be worth it. But you see, I'm super clear with what values I'm looking for. And I'm not going to just go about and drop my dream for any company like that. And that's what I encourage everybody to do. Get really clear, get very like crystal clear about that. What are your non-negotiables, and how you want to live your life forward in every level, in your career and in your life. I'm hugging a lot of time here. Sally, help me.
I was going to say, on the consumer side, okay. Sally, when you've recruited for companies, I know at Order Groove, we always ask, so why Order Groove? And they don't know often that they're working with us because we're B2B, but they'll go, oh, well, I love my subscription to such and such. And I saw Order Groove made subscriptions for retailers. So that connected to me on a personal level. And by the way, that's like, the most business answer possible versus an actual mission-driven company that like makes a difference. But Sally, as a recruiter, like, how does that resonate when someone says, I love your product, I love what you do, it connects with me personally?
It's absolutely essential, right? And like, I don't need you to be crazy about what we do. Like, some of the folks at Yapo might kill me for saying this, but when I was at Yapo, they put so much emphasis on like, we should only be hiring people who love to shop online. I don't like to shop online, and I was a successful leader of that organization for over 4 years. So like, I think that it has to come in a few different forms, right? So like, there is something to be said for someone saying, I interact with something like this every day and it's very close to me. It's like, that's one version. The other could just be, I've noticed that people stay at your company for more than 2 years on a regular basis. Like, I want to be somewhere for a while. I'm not seeing that in a lot of tech companies, so that really resonated with me. Or I saw an article that was written about female empowerment at your company, and that's not the case at all companies. And to see faces and quotes from people who had experienced that was really moving for me and made me want to apply to this company. So it can take a lot of different forms. It doesn't always have to be an obsession with the product. But I do encourage people to like look at the LinkedIns of people who have been at the company for a while, see what they're sharing, what gets them excited about the organization. And those things can, or, look at their built-in, look at their Muse page. Like, some companies will do a better job of branding themselves than others. But all of those things are fair game for saying, this is why I chose this place. It doesn't have to come in one format.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's just have an answer for why, no matter what that answer is, have an answer.
Yeah, because otherwise you're the third company I interviewed with today, or like I am the third company you interviewed with today, right? And like, I get it. It's hard. Like, it's a real pain in the butt to have to prepare thoroughly for all these interviews, but like, that should be something that's a little bit more intrinsic. Like, this thing got me excited for this reason. And that's why I emphasize it doesn't have to look a certain way. Like, there is no right or wrong answer. You just have to have a answer, right? That's the important part.
Nice. Excellent. Well, with 5 minutes to go, I would love to give Beatrice and Sally each a chance to give one, like, if you do anything tonight or tomorrow differently because of this, what's that one thing? And then how can people best reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation? Sally looks like she's thinking. Beatrice looks like she's thinking. Who's ready first?
While you guys are thinking, I think Beatrice instruction worked, because I've literally become the beach.
you are the beach now.
Her urging me to really focus and think about, look I've become the beach. This is what I want, right?
Success. Success.
Best thing ever.
I think I'm ready, unless you want to go first, Beatrice.
No, go ahead.
If I were to, like, if there's any one thing that completely transformed the trajectory of my career, and Susanna said it too, it's like, it is who you know and who you've spoken to and who impresses you. Like, unfortunately, that is just the reality of the situation. But you can expand that network in so many ways. And the biggest way I did that during COVID, the biggest way this influenced my career has been reaching out to people and saying, and it has to be personalized, right? It has to be like, this is why, but finding people who made a shift similar to the one you're trying to make, or someone who's in the role you want to be in. Those people will often make time to speak with you. And those people will not only then be champions for you moving forward who can speak on your behalf, but they will probably build your confidence. They will probably help you understand what I want to be is not as far off as I think it is, which will end up influencing your ability to interview for jobs. It will influence people's perception of your confidence, and it does pan out. And those are also the people who might put you in touch with the person who helps you get a job, right? Like, Paul, Susanna's brother, was put in touch with me by a candidate who I placed like 7 years ago. And then Paul and I spoke, and I was chatting Susanna on the side, and I was like, oh, thank you for being here. It reminded me to put him in touch with a person I know who's a head of talent at a mental health tech company. So now, because Tyler put Paul in touch with me, I'm going to put Paul in touch with Keshar, and like, that can happen for you, but you have to have those conversations with people, even if the conversation is just, I want to understand if I'm on the right path. I want to understand what you do every day. I want to understand how that relates to what I do. Those connections will very possibly define your career.
Awesome. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you to continue the conversation?
LinkedIn. Just add me on LinkedIn. That's you're probably going to fall into like a deep dark hole if you email me. So LinkedIn, you'll get continuous tips because I post a lot of tips in general, but you can also message me there. And then if I don't get back to you, message me again because I get a lot of messages.
Thank you. Beatrice.
Well, if you didn't already guess, I'm gonna go the total opposite that Sally did, and I said, go and know yourself. Know yourself. So really get very clear about, what are some of my strengths? What are some of my gifts? What is my story? How can I really tell a powerful story with myself and not being afraid or ashamed of anything? It's just really, just know yourself, what you can offer, and build that story. But which in turn is, is going to connect really nice with that other one, because when you reach out to people, you really want to have that very clear.
Awesome. And what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Definitely LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all day as well. But if anything, also, LinkedIn is the best way. Let's keep it there.
And we'll be sending out a summary email with a couple of worksheets, this recording, how to, your actual LinkedIn link so people aren't trying to find you. And so if you have any other things that you want to share, obviously we can do it there. Thank you so much for those who joined. For those who are watching this recorded, we're glad you registered, and hopefully this was really helpful. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. My final tip to you is just to do something. There were lots of pieces of advice. The fact that you registered for this webinar was step number 1. Step number 2 is to take that next step and don't hold yourself back. You can do it. Other people do it. You will do it. You're going to be great. I am also on LinkedIn. I feel like this is a commercial for LinkedIn. Also catch Getting Off the Hamster Wheel, which is my podcast that highlights career changers. You can find it on every podcast thing out there. So thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And we're here to help. And thank you to our panelists for joining us and sharing that amazing advice. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thursday evening and the rest of your week. Bye.
Bye-bye.